for messengers came running one after another. Before one finished speaking, the next was already shouting the new tragedy. In a single day, the richest man in the East lost everything, and his story begins in heaven. He lost his 10 children, his entire fortune, and his health in 24 hours without knowing why. But we're gonna find out. This story begins in a place Job never saw. To understand it all, we need to start from the beginning. In the ancient land of Uz lived a man named Job. The Bible opens his story with a rare testimony. Blameless, upright, God-fearing, a man who turned away from evil. And that's exactly how the oldest narrative of faith begins, no detours. Did you know the book of Job might be the oldest in the entire Bible? Scholars point out it may have been written even before Genesis was compiled. One of the oldest stories ever recorded by humanity, kept safe for millennia until it finally reached you. And Job's wealth was no small thing. 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys grazed on his lands. Add in the servants, and it was a fortune almost beyond counting for that era, and that's just the start of the list. The sacred text doesn't hesitate to give him the title. Job was the greatest of all the people of the East. Not the richest in his city or even his region, the richest in his entire known world. Really sit with the weight of that. And Job's household overflowed too. 7 sons and 3 daughters. 10 in all, the number of fullness in that culture. A large family, close-knit, full of life. But hold on to that number. It's going to come back, and it's going to hurt. Job's sons held feasts, each one taking his turn on his own day, and they always invited their 3 sisters to sit at the table with them. In a culture where siblings often drifted apart, this kind of family bond was rare enough to be recorded. And here's a detail few notice. Once the cycle of feasts ended, Job would rise at dawn, alone, and offer a sacrifice for each child. Perhaps they sinned in their hearts, he would say, a father who interceded even for what he couldn't see. Think about that. Job didn't know of any real sin his children had committed. He prayed for what he could not see out of caution, just to be sure. That's the exact snapshot of this man's integrity, and it's precisely that integrity about to be put to the test. But now the camera cuts to a place Job never saw, heaven. And here's the secret that holds up the entire book. From this point on, we get to see behind the scenes. Job, down below, will never know any of this happened. One day, the sons of God presented themselves before the Lord in the heavenly throne room. And among them, uninvited, the accuser also appears. A presence that doesn't belong to that light, yet stands there anyway, watching everything. The question that opens it all echoes through the throne room. Where have you come from? And the accuser's answer is cold. From roaming through the earth and walking around on it. He was wandering, watching every corner of the world, searching for something or someone. Then the radiant light asks, have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him on earth. Blameless, upright, fearing God and turning away from evil. The creator of the universe himself, with pride, chooses to speak one man's name. And here's the detail that changes everything. The one who mentions Job first is not the accuser, it's God himself. He wasn't defending anyone. He was bragging. God trusts Job so much that he's the one pointing the finger at this man. The accuser isn't shaken. His answer is pure provocation. Does Job fear God for nothing? The accusation is direct and cruel. Job's faith isn't genuine. It was purchased, line by line, by every blessing he ever received. The accuser continues, revealing more than he intended. Haven't you put a hedge of protection around him, his household, and everything he owns? An invisible wall surrounded Job, protecting every sheep, every child, every tent. The challenge is issued. Stretch out your hand, touch everything he has, and he will curse you to your face. The bet is on. On one side, God's confidence. On the other, the accuser's certainty that it will all come crashing down. God accepts, but sets a limit. Everything he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on the man himself. The first boundary line is drawn. The accuser can touch everything, except Job's own body. Think about that. Job never knew about this conversation. He was about to lose everything without understanding why, and we, watching, know from the very start. That gap between what Job knows and what you already know drives the entire story. The accuser left the presence of the Lord, and down below, in the land of Uz, the day dawned like any other. It was feast day at the house of Job's oldest son. Laughter, food, wine. No one knew what was coming. The first messenger comes running, breathless, dust and blood on his clothes. The oxen were plowing, the donkeys grazing nearby, when the Sabaeans attacked, drove off the animals, and struck down the servants with the sword. "I alone escaped," he shouts. "Only I came to tell you." Before he even finishes speaking, the second messenger comes running, the same urgency on his face. Fire from God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants. Job's 7,000 sheep, the entire flock, turned to ash in seconds. Did you know each blow wipes out an entire category in exact order? First the oxen and donkeys, the labor of the land. Then the sheep, the clothing, and the food. It's no accident. Job's destruction is systematic, calculated, surgical. Before the second one finishes speaking, the third arrives. The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties, carried off the 3,000 camels, and killed the servants with the sword. The camels were Job's transportation, his trade, his liquid fortune, and now they too were gone. Think about the rhythm of this. One messenger stumbling over the next, each one starting to speak before the last one finished. In a matter of minutes, the richest man in the east, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 1,000 pack animals, was left with literally nothing. And then the fourth messenger arrives, the last one. Unlike the others, he doesn't run. He walks slowly, staring at the ground. And it's from his face, even before a single word, that Job realizes. The worst of it all hadn't come yet. The fourth messenger swallows hard and begins. "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine at your oldest son's house, just as they always did." Job already knew this scene. He himself had watched all 10 of them gathered like that so many times. And suddenly a great wind came in from the desert, struck the 4 corners of the house, and it collapsed on the young people. They all died. "I alone escaped to tell you." The same closing words as the 3 messengers before him. But this time the cost was unbearable. 10 children, all at once. On the very same day, he lost the entire fortune it took a whole lifetime to build. Nowhere else in the Bible is there a blow this concentrated, this brutal, falling on a single man. There's a detail almost no one notices. The 4 disasters alternate. Wicked men, the Sabaeans. Then something supernatural. Fire from the sky. Wicked men again, the Chaldeans. And the supernatural again, the wind. To Job, it must have felt like the entire world had turned against him. What does Job do in the face of all this? He rises, tears his own robe, shaves his own head with his own hands, the deepest mourning gestures of that culture. Job doesn't fake strength. He feels the full weight of the pain, hiding nothing. Then Job does what absolutely no one expected. He falls to the ground, face down in the dirt, and worships. He doesn't curse. He doesn't shout at heaven. In the worst moment of his life, Job's first reaction is to bow down before God. And the words from his mouth travel 4,000 years to reach us here. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." A line that became synonymous with faith. Think about this. He didn't say the devil took it, or the Sabaeans took everything. In his theology, everything that happens ultimately passes through the hand of God. And even holding that harsh view, he still chose to bless the name of the Lord. The sacred text's final verdict is clear and definitive. In all this, Job did not sin, nor did he charge God with wrongdoing. Round 1 is over. The accuser's bet, back in the throne room, had just failed completely. But behind the scenes in the throne room, the accuser was far from finished. He would return to the presence of God, and next time the target would no longer be Job's possessions. Next time, the target would be his own body. Days pass on earth, but heaven opens the same scene again. The sons of God present themselves before the throne, and the accuser is there among them. The question repeats, "Where have you come from?" And the answer too, "From roaming the earth." God repeats his praise of Job, blameless, upright, God-fearing, then adds a line that changes everything. He still holds fast to his integrity, though you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. Without cause. The text admits it plainly. Job did nothing wrong. The accuser fires back instantly. Skin for skin. A man will give everything he has for his own life. His theory is surgical. The possessions weren't enough, but Job's faith might break if the blow lands closer. Time to touch his body. God allows it, but draws a second boundary. He is in your hands, but spare his life. It's not total freedom, it's a short leash. The accuser can wound his body, wreck his health, take everything, except the one last thing, the breath in Job's lungs. Here's the detail almost nobody notices. Not once in the entire book does the accuser hold unlimited power of his own. Every blow first passed through permission and came with a marked limit. In the book of Job, evil literally walks on God's leash. Back on earth, the blow lands without warning. The accuser strikes Job with painful sores, from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. The richest man in the East, who once had everything, now doesn't have a single inch of healthy skin left. Job picks up a piece of broken pottery to scrape his own sores. It's the only relief he can find. Then he sits down among the ashes, on the refuse heap outside the village. The dump, the place for the unclean. The most respected man in UZ now lives there. Did you know doctors and scholars have tried to diagnose Job's sores for centuries? The biblical text describes unbearable itching, skin that cracks and darkens, high fever, constant nightmares, bad breath, and pain that never lets up, not by day, not by night. But the hardest blow comes from inside his own home. Job's wife, who also buried all 10 children, who also lost everything, finally breaks. Do you still hold on to your integrity? Curse God and die. Her pain had turned into a scream. Job answers without cursing his wife. You speak as a foolish woman speaks. Shall we accept good from God and not accept trouble? And the sacred text seals the moment. In all this, Job did not sin with his lips, not a single slip. Think about her for a moment. Job's wife might be the most judged character in the entire Bible, but she buried 10 children in a single day, lost the house, the wealth, the husband she once knew. Her pain was real too, and nobody talks about that. News of Job's disaster travels fast, from city to city. 3 of his friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, hear everything and agree, each setting out from his own land, to come together to comfort him and weep at his side. When the 3 friends arrive and spot him from a distance, something freezes. They don't recognize him. The wealthy, healthy man they knew has vanished beneath the sores and the ashes. Only a stranger remains, sitting on the ash heap, unrecognizable even to those who loved him. Then the 3 of them raise their voices and weep aloud. They tear their robes, throw dust on their heads as a sign of mourning, then sit down on the ground beside Job without saying a word. Their presence alone is already a kind of embrace. And here's the wisest thing the three of them do in the entire book. They stay 7 days and 7 nights in absolute silence. Nobody says a word because, as the text records, they saw that his suffering was very great, too great for any sentence to hold. Here's the detail almost nobody notices. As long as they stayed quiet, the three friends were the best comforters in the whole Bible. The disaster only begins once they open their mouths. Keep that lesson. Sometimes presence is worth more than any beautiful word. After 7 days, it's Job himself who breaks the silence. And what comes out of his mouth isn't resignation, it's pure lament. Job opens his mouth and curses the day he was born. Not a single sigh of acceptance, only raw pain. May the day I was born perish. Why did I not die at birth? Job cries out. The Bible doesn't hide it. Even the most blameless man on earth can hit rock bottom, can wish he'd never existed. That too is written in Scripture. Think about this. Job cursed his own birth, questioned, cried out in pain, but never once did he curse God. There's a huge difference between shouting toward God and spitting against him. Job, even shattered, was still shouting in the right direction. Eliphaz, the eldest of the three, opens the round of speeches. Politely at first, who, being innocent, has ever perished? His theology is simple and dangerous. Suffering is always punishment. If you're suffering, somewhere along the line you sinned. Bildad goes deeper and presses straight on the open wound. If your children sinned against him, he gave them over to the punishment they deserved. The insinuation is cruel. He's suggesting, right to Job's face, that his 10 dead children deserve to die. Zophar comes in even harsher than the other two. Know that God is punishing you less than your guilt deserves. To him, Job isn't a victim, he's a guilty man getting a discount. Here, cruelty dresses itself up as spiritual advice. Here's the detail almost nobody notices. The three friends spoke beautiful, quotable, theologically correct lines, and were completely wrong. Only you, the viewer, know that because you saw what happened behind the scenes in heaven. Job wasn't being punished for absolutely anything. Job answers them one by one, through rounds of speeches spanning 28 chapters, the heart of the entire book. He doesn't back down. I am not guilty of this. And he goes further, asking the impossible. He wants to speak face to face with God himself. In the middle of his deepest pain, Job speaks a line that crosses the centuries and becomes one of the most quoted in the entire Bible. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. Pure trust, cried out by a man who lost absolutely everything he had. Then comes the most stunning line of all, spoken by a man covered in sores, sitting in the garbage 2,000 years before Christ. I know that my Redeemer lives, and in the end he will stand upon the earth. A prophecy from the bottom of the abyss. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. From the bottom of the pit, Job prophesies his own resurrection. Did you know this line has become a song, a gravestone epitaph, a creed repeated in churches all around the world? The rounds of speeches heat up. Out of new arguments, the friends turn to direct accusation. Eliphaz invents a whole list of sins Job never committed. You demanded pledges from your brothers for no reason, withheld bread from the hungry, water from the thirsty. Job fires back with an inventory of his own life. I was eyes to the blind, feet to the lame, a father to the poor. I took up the case of the stranger, the portrait of a righteous man, confirmed by facts the viewer already saw. Then comes the outburst every sufferer knows. Why do the wicked live, grow old in peace, and even grow rich? It's the question the three friends can't answer, because answering it honestly would shatter their own theology to pieces. Think about this. The book of Job dismantles the oldest religious math in the world. You suffer because you sinned, you prosper because you're good. Real life, the book says, without asking anyone's permission, is always bigger and messier than that simple equation. The three friends finally fall silent, defeated, out of arguments. But there was a fourth man there the whole time, younger than the others, who stayed quiet only out of respect for his elders. And now, inside, he's boiling with restrained anger. Elihu finally explodes. He grows angry at Job, because he justified himself rather than God, and angry at the three friends, because they condemn Job without finding an answer. His silence is over, and nobody walks away unscathed from what comes next. Elihu's speech brings a new piece to the puzzle. Suffering isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's a megaphone. God speaks once, and again a second time, but stubborn man doesn't notice. An idea none of the three friends had dared to say. And as Elihu speaks, something shifts in the scene around them. Heavy, laden clouds build on the horizon. Thunder rumbles in the distance. Elihu himself notices the change first and begins, surprised by it himself, to describe the storm racing toward them. God thunders wonderfully with his voice. Around him is awesome majesty. Elihu narrates, almost in a trance, the arrival of something none of the four men there expected. Something bigger than any speech, bigger than any theory about suffering and justice. Because after 37 chapters of God's absolute silence, the entire storm stops right in front of Job. And from inside the whirlwind, a voice no character in the book had ever heard before finally begins to speak. The voice finally answers, but not the way Job expected. From inside the whirlwind, God explains nothing. He gives no reasons, no one to blame. Instead, he starts asking questions. Dozens of them, and the very first one disarms Job completely. The question that opens it all, direct and blunt. Who is this who darkens counsel with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Job, who wanted to judge God, is now the one being judged. Did you know? From here on, God asks Job more than 60 questions in a row, and not one of them directly explains his suffering. It's considered the most famous interrogation in world literature, a speech that has crossed millennia without losing its power or its mystery. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. The very first question sends Job straight back to the beginning of everything, to the moment when neither he nor anyone existed to watch the world being born. When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy, the creation of the world is described as a spectacle, with an audience, applause, and song. Job wasn't there, but someone was watching it all closely from the very beginning. Who shut in the SEA with doors when it burst forth from the womb? I said, this far you may come, and no farther. Here your proud waves must stop. The most violent ocean in the world obeys a single voice, the very same one speaking to Job. Have you ever, in your whole life, commanded the morning? Have you shown the dawn its place? Think about that. Job, have you ever scheduled a single sunrise in your life? The question sounds absurd, and that's exactly why it works. Have you entered the storehouses of snow? Have you seen the storehouses of hail? Did you know that every snowflake is unique? A detail science only confirmed thousands of years later? God had already kept that secret in his storehouses, long before any microscope existed. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loosen the belt of Orion? God calls out constellations by name, the very same ones you can still see in the sky today, thousands of years later. The same heavens above Job are above your head right now. Who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God? Do you know the time when the mountain goats give birth? From the whole cosmos down to a hungry raven's hidden nest, God moves from the universe to the detail nobody else notices. The voice gets even more specific. The ostrich that runs and laughs at the horse, the war horse that smells the battle from far away, the falcon that soars through the sky. Who taught them all of that? Not one of these creatures learned it alone. Think about it. Instead of one single answer, God gives Job an entire tour of creation. The message underneath is simple and devastating. If you don't understand how I govern the physical world, trust how I govern your story. The first pause in the storm, and God throws down a direct challenge. Let whoever argues with the Almighty answer. Job, the man who once wanted a courtroom against God, can now only say, ashamed, I am unworthy. How can I answer you? I put my hand over my mouth. But God isn't finished. Round 2, and now come the two most debated monsters in the whole Bible. First, a direct command. Look now at Behemoth, which I made along with you, a creature so massive that only the Creator himself can name it. He eats grass like the ox. His bones are like bars of iron. He is the first of the works of God, a colossal, absurd force that no human being can capture or tame. Yet it obeys the Creator without the slightest effort. And then, can you pull in Leviathan with a hook? Smoke pours from his nostrils. He makes the sea boil like a pot. On earth there is nothing to compare with him. The most feared monster of the ancient waters is, to God, just one more creature. Did you know? For centuries, scholars have debated what Behemoth and Leviathan really are. A hippopotamus and a crocodile? Forgotten dinosaurs? Symbols of primordial chaos? The point of the text never changes. There are forces you will never tame, and that's exactly what God tames without effort. And then Job answers for the last time, the words that close the great debate of the whole book. I know that you can do all things, and no plan of yours can be thwarted. This is no longer an argument against God. It is complete surrender. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. Here is the real turning point of the story. Job didn't get a complete answer. He got an encounter. And in the end, for Job, that was more than enough. Therefore I despise myself, and I repent in dust and ashes. Job repents, but not of hidden sins, because there weren't any. He repents for having spoken with such certainty about a mystery that was never his to understand. And here's the detail almost nobody notices. God never told Job about the wager made behind the scenes. Job died without ever knowing exactly why any of it happened. His faith never depended on an explanation, only on the encounter he had. Then comes the scene nobody expected. God's anger turns against the three friends. You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has, says the voice, and history's theologians become the ones found guilty. Think about it. The friends spent entire chapters defending God with bad theology. Job shouted, questioned, wept out loud, and it's Job whom God calls righteous. The lesson is hard. God prefers an honest cry over a pretty, false compliment. The sentence for the three friends: offer 7 bulls and 7 rams as a sacrifice, and ask Job himself to pray for them. For I will accept only my servant Job's prayer, says God. The former targets have now become the intercessors. And the most beautiful detail in the whole book: the Lord restored Job's fortunes when he prayed for his friends. The restoration didn't begin before that. It began at the exact moment Job blessed, from the heart, the very people who had hurt him most. The restoration arrives in impossible numbers. God gives Job back double everything he had: 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. The man who lost it all now has twice as much. The whole family draws close again. Brothers, sisters, and old acquaintances eat with him once more, comfort him, and each one brings money and a gold ring as a gift. The social shame Job carried for months finally comes to an end. And the children, Job has 10 again. 7 sons and 3 daughters, the whole family rebuilt after the worst possible tragedy. But there's a quiet detail hidden here that completely changes the right way to read this part of the story. Everything else came back double, but the children came back in the same number as before. Why? The most accepted answer. The first 10 weren't lost forever, they were in eternity. 10 here plus 10 there, that's the real double. The 3 daughters get their own names on record, something rare for that era: Jemima, meaning dove; Keziah, cinnamon; and Karen Hapuk, horn of eye paint. The Bible records: in all the land there were no women as beautiful as Job's 3 daughters. Did you know? Job gave his daughters an inheritance right alongside their brothers, something almost unheard of in the ancient world. The man who met God inside the storm ended up, without even realizing it, far ahead of his own time in more ways than one. The epilogue. Job lived 140 more years after all this, and saw his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, for generations living all at once. So Job died old and full of days. The calmest sentence in the entire book. Go back now to the very beginning. The accuser's question was, does Job fear God for nothing? After losing everything and gaining it all back, the answer was proven. Yes, there is a faith that can't be bought with blessing or broken by pain. And the question that stayed unanswered to the very end: why did I suffer? God never answered directly. He gave something greater than the answer. He gave himself. And for Job, that encounter was worth more than any explanation. If you're going through a season of loss, know this: there may be things happening behind the scenes you can't see, limits you don't even notice, and an ending that hasn't reached you yet. Job's story doesn't end in loss. It ends in double. And you? Have you ever lost something so big it later became your testimony? Tell me your story down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and join me for the next journey. Because the Bible holds so much more faith, courage, and miracle waiting for you.